Star Trek. Star Trek, Star Trek, Star Trek. Look what they have done to my boy.
Look how they massacred my boy.
Star Trek Strange New Worlds, which is a combination of this new era of the Kurtzman Trek, which encompasses Discovery, Star Trek Discovery, Starfleet Shit Academy, Strange New Worlds. I feel like I'm missing another one. But this guy has single handedly, along with his posse, destroyed what was a show about a wagon to the stars that has now become throwing puppets into space. In the 60th year anniversary of this show, ironically and sadly. I have been a Trekkie since the early 80s when I was able to get hands of my television at home. And I was watching Star Trek one night, staying up early. Oh, sorry, staying up late at night. And I saw this show that I have never even knew about because Star Trek ended the year I was born, 1969. And I didn't get into syndication or have access to television until it was my early 80s, when, it was much easier for me in my age group. And I was completely blown over watching Star Trek, the original series. Like, I could sit here and cry. I have never seen anything like that since and then. Now, it kept me going crazy. It kept me from going crazy. I ate up every episode. I lived, breathed it. I never been to one of the conventions. I just never had the money to go to it. But I was fascinated by Spock, Kirk, and McCoy, mostly Spock. And I was a true fan. Still am, to the original series. I didn't watch Star Trek Enterprise, or what it was, Enterprise, but when Star Trek Next Generation came on, again, blew me away because I had been binging the original series and the movies for years now, and I never thought I would see the day that they have another Star Trek show that is a sequel to the original series. And not only was it a sequel, it was done very well. Now, the first two seasons of The Next Generation were not easy to watch, but it was so new and fresh, and the technology there, when you don't realize that it had the iPad. Now we think of these things that are so common in our lives. The original series had what we like to call mobile device now, flat screen television. So many things came out of Star Trek. People who were fans got into science, NASA, space travel, all that because of these shows. This is the impact. And I'm talking about separate from Star Wars. Okay? Because that's a separate thing. I want Star Trek, the wagon to the stars. Okay? That premise of getting out there and space travel. I didn't watch Enterprise when it is the prequel to the original series, right? It lasted 3 years. Never watched it. Not even, I never watched it. I don't know why. I think it was on a channel that I really didn't pay attention to. Though I knew it existed at the time, I just didn't pay attention to it. When we were in the pandemic, we had nothing to do, right? So everything is what's on television, what's on streaming, what's on YouTube. I finally got into Enterprise and I said, wow, it's not half bad. I wish I would have watched it back then. And then I realized the ending was so horrific. I was like, well, thank God I wasn't a fan of that. But I can sit down and rewatch Enterprise, except for the last scene, for a couple of times. I think it was an interesting take on what happened before Trek, the original series. I also watched um, the other Treks that I never got into. Janeway's Trek, um, Deep Space Nine. I never watched those shows. I've always stuck with the original Star Trek Enterprises. But during the pandemic, like I said, I was able to catch up. I probably will watch Deep Space Nine again. It's a lot to take in. It's very religious, and it kind of like took me aback to how deep that goes. Um, and I've only watched it once. I maybe one day watch it again. I know there's a really big fan base, and the one with Janeway, the one they get lost. I've watched it once as well. It's cute. It's not exactly my cup of tea, but I did watch it. I sat through it. I was like, okay, nothing prepared me. Nothing prepared me for the next iterations. I did watch the movies, the new ones, trying to recapture the magic of the original series with the new Spock, the new Captain Kirk, and McCoy, and you know um, the first movie I actually went to the movie theater by myself for the first time ever at a theater because I was hell bent on watching this movie, and nobody in my group got what I got me. They don't watch Trek. They don't understand science fiction to that level. So that was my entry of going to the movie theater by myself, and I went to watch it 3 times because I was just wow. I was like wow. I really enjoyed it. Yes, there's a lot of problems with it, but it was nice to see the original cast being recast and the story being told of how they met and what happened. I was like, all right, I get it. Every movie after that was just stupid. Sorry. They try to recreate the Wrath of Khan, reverse engineer it, and it's just horrible. I think the casting was good, but the storylines were horrible. Okay. So I thought it was the end. Nope. It's not the end. It's the end now. So now we get into the TV shows and the Kurtzman era. Dear God. I watched Discovery, and I thought it was one of the most ridiculous shows I've ever seen in my entire life. And I just want to preface by saying this that I've been a quiet I've been quiet about this. This is the first time I'm actually talking about this, though I have watched many people not only talk about this, good, bad, and the freaking ugly. Okay? And bad and ugly supersede the good. Rack up many reviews, many discords. A lot of people hate this. I could have come on here a long time ago. I decided to refrain because of I couldn't wrap my head around what was going on. There's a few YouTubers I watch that are real Star Trek aficionados that I appreciate because I thought I was going crazy when I was watching these shows, and I'm like, what is going on? What's happening? What is this? And then they're the ones who say they like the shows, and I look at them, I'm like, no, you don't. You're getting something out of this. And I'm sorry, I'm not pointing anyone out. I'm not going to put their links down below. I'm just feeling that there's no way any real Star Trek fan can enjoy any of this. Now, there's not, there's parts of it that you can enjoy, but to tell me that, oh, this is amazing, this is what it is, it's not, I'm not crazy. I thank God for the people who yell the loudest, which are the real fans, and say, what is this crap? Because it's bad. So I went through Discovery, and, I discovered that Spock has a sister, Michael Burnham, who he can never talk about towards the end of the season of his reign on the show, Spock, because he comes in, I believe, season 2. He can never talk about her because, they're not allowed to, which would explain why in the years that I've watched Trek, I never knew that Spock had an adopted sister named Michael Burnham. They tried to clean that storyline up, and it failed miserably. The only shining light in that entire show was Captain Pike. and the creation of Strange New Worlds, which would be the Pike era before Kirk took over. And, you know, technically Spock is on there, technically. And I don't know what the hell happened after that. I was like, oh yeah, okay, something better than what the hell I'm watching now. I don't even think I watched the last season of Discovery. I was like, I can't. Fine. I never watched the animated any of them. Just wasn't my thing. But I was excited for Strange New Worlds. I was like, cool. I like this guy. I like I like to see what happened with Pike before Kirk. And that's where it ended. Season 1. I watched it. I said, well, it's certainly a choice of direction, not what I expected. But okay, not every show has a good first season, aka the original series, aka the next generation. A lot of shows, not just science fiction, don't hit the right footing the first season. Though, they could have, but they didn't, and I didn't understand what was happening. So I watched season 1, and I said, okay, it's not really a season. It's like vignettes. We get 10 episodes. Remember when we used to get 22 a season? And each one of those episodes was stupid. And I said, okay, I can deal with this only because I like Pike. And then they took away Pike in the sense that he never really was captain. He was chef, but he wasn't really captain. Season 2 comes. Spock is there still, even from season 1. I guess this is the version of Spock where they took his brain out and they forgot to put it back in. He has been a whiny, insufferable little bitch each episode. He's got emotional, trauma, Katra, no Katra, whatever the hell's going on with this guy. I fail to see how they think that that's the version of Spock before Kirk. So they killed me, that character. They've introduced characters into this storyline that shouldn't be there. Okay? Nurse Chapel? I don't believe Nurse Chapel wasn't supposed to be with Pike. I could be wrong. But at this point, my brain is about to explode amongst other parts of my body. And I've sat and I watched season 2. And I've listened to all the people on the internet, YouTube, TikToks, everywhere, who are blowing their minds off with this nonsense. And it brought me solace. I still didn't come on camera. It's coming why I'm here today, okay? Wait for it. Starfleet Shit Feet Academy was my breaking point. Not enough for me to come on camera because this one is the one that made me come on camera to talk about this. But Starfleet Shit Academy with the feet and the disgustingness and the kids and the storyline or lack thereof broke me. I said, dear God, they hate Star Trek. They being whoever's writing, and it's not ChatGPT. It's like people sitting in a room, smoking, drinking, making shit up out of the air because they're bored. They're angry. They don't understand Star Trek or the premise of the original series. Hell, not even the next generation. Nothing. Nothing. I wanted to throw everything at the television. I was like, all right. I heard that it was canceled, but season two is coming. I don't know if I'm going to watch it at all because for me to get through season one, I literally crawled up in the corner and I started crying. I was like, no. Then I had to mentally prepare myself for season three of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. I believe this is season four now. I'm going to tell you, I don't remember anything in season three. I'm sure. Wait. Oh, yeah, no, still stupid shit. Stories with no trajectory, no understanding. I think Q is in there from Star Trek: The Next Generation. One of his kids are on the show, possibly. They don't really confirm it, but you just hear, his voice, Q. And I know people who don't watch Star Trek don't know what the hell I'm talking about, and I do apologize. These are for the Star Trek, somewhat fans, aficionados, whatever you do. You know what I'm talking about. I remember that episode. I want to say this is the season that Spock cursed for the first time ever. It could be season two. Nurse Chapel gets into some sort of crazy crap with, Dr. Umbenga, and he's known to be now somewhat of a murderer. I could be mixing up seasons. I don't know. All I know is that normally I would rewatch seasons. Like I said, I will go watch Deep Space Nine again. It's long, but I have to mentally prepare myself. Um, Next Generation, I was just watching it last month. Star Trek, the original series, I was watching it a couple. Like I will rewatch. I cannot rewatch any of New Trek. I can't sit through it. Literally, I have no joy watching any of it. Not a season, not a reason, not an episode, not a word, not a poop, not a pop, nothing. There is no direction. There is no love. There is no TLC. There is no science fiction. It's science shittion. Okay? It gets worse. Why I came on camera. After getting Starfleet Shit Academy, and now Star Trek: The Strange New World has now been on season 4, and we are now, I can't even remember the episode. I think this is episode 5 out of 8 or 10, maybe. We have Muppets in space. This is what we have been reduced to. Now, I'm going to give you the good. The puppets that we used were done with Jim Henson's Puppets company. Beautiful. Absolutely stunning. Kudos to the crew. It's an homage to Jim Henson and the Muppets. This is not their fault. It is actually a sight to behold. I would have loved to have been able to be up close and personal with these things because chef's kiss. The renditions of each of the characters look phenomenal, and you could just tell the love and care that they created these Muppets with, which is, I have to say, was what got me through the scene. Okay? Other than that, the rest of it is stupid. There's no explanation. I knew from the explanation of how these characters turn into Muppets or puppets. For that reasoning alone, I knew that this was a fever dream for Spock. That none of this was really happening. Because the way that it was explained in the show of how they turned into puppets, I was like, first of all, what? What? I said, nah, he's dreaming. That's why he's the only one that's not turned into a Muppet or puppet or whatever the hell you want to call it. I was like, there's no way. And of course, at the end, that's exactly what happened. He dreamt the whole scenario. But at the end of the day, this entire episode, from the rooter to the tutor, was nonsensical. The reasoning behind it, the only thing that made sense is that when they became puppets, they were not recognized by the computer or the airlift or anything, which makes sense because they're not humanoids. At least they got that right. But at the end of the day, the reasoning behind this episode doesn't make any sense to me. And to a majority of the people who love Star Trek and hate these shows. Okay? This was people bored. They don't know what they're writing. They're like, let's have some fun at the expense of the true fans. And we're going out with a bang. It's the 60th year anniversary of Star Trek. There is no other Trek in the making right now, not in the pipeline. This is it. This is it. That's it. It's over. So let's fuck it up. And they're doing that. The only other show that's left is the second season of Starship Academy. And after that, there's nothing in the pipeline, presumably. The Wagon to the Stars. Gene Roddenberry. It's over. There is no vision. There is nobody there with vision. There is nobody that wants to care. And if this was a show about the real Muppets meeting the Star Trek characters as Muppets and making a real Star Trek show, like Muppets meet the Star Treks and they are functioning, Muppets, and they're doing like a scene where they're recruiting, Miss Piggy and Kermit and everybody else. I have a lot of respect for Jen Henson. I love the Muppets. I love them on Sesame Street. I still cry to this day on some of the episodes that I remember. I still remember Mama Mama da 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 Mama Mama. Like I get that song in my head all the time. You know, he was an amazing puppeteer, and his crew, and the fact that his family are the ones running the company is beautiful. And if they would have done this in a more sensible, sensitive way, where let's say they wanted to go on to Sesame Street, like so many guest stars have done, and introduce Star Trek to kids of that age to get them excited, to get them to understand Star Trek, or any of this science fiction stuff, it would have been beautifully done if it was written by people who give a shit. Or if they wanted to do a special Muppets meet Star Trek and they really are doing like a real scene, I would have appreciated it. But that's not what this was. It wasn't. Everybody that became puppets were completely inept. They couldn't touch anything. They couldn't do anything. Spock was the only one running around the ship trying to help everybody, and he was having one of his famous panic attacks that he always has now. This guy gives me panic attacks watching him. I'm sorry, but he does. At least the Leonard Nimoy version was calming, logical, frustrating, but at least he made sense, and I didn't get stressed out every time something happened. Now every time something happens, I'm scared Spock is gonna have a panic attack and just press the button and fly into space. This is literally how they make this character. I don't even understand what's happening with Captain Pike. His hair just keeps getting bigger and his brain keeps getting smaller. Okay, I'm sorry, but it's true. Okay, the cast alone, they don't hold up the show. They can't even hold up themselves. There's no storyline. So this episode got me because at the end of the episode, before Spock wakes up and realizes that this is a dream, they're being thrown out into space because space does not affect the puppets, and they can fly freely through space with not a care in the world or air in their lungs. So you just see them floating around into space after this episode ends, before this episode ends, after the stupidity that happens. And I'm just sitting there like, wow. And then Spock wakes up and I'm like, I knew it. Because none of this made sense. I don't think I can go through the rest of the episodes. I didn't watch the black and white version that happened right before this because I just couldn't bring myself up to it. And I heard it was a shit show yet again. And I watched this out of respect for Jim Henson's company and Muppets. And I said, let's see how bad this can be. And boy, did I get myself into a little big pickle. I come here to say goodbye to any new Trek because I don't think we're going to get any in a long time. And to say thank you for all the Trek that came before this bullshit, and for all the actors and writers and, people in that industry who took care of this series and took it seriously and brought so many people joy and a new understanding of science, of flight, of the universe in its own way. For that, I thank you for 60 years because what has happened now is not going to stain in my mind Trek before. I'm going to go and never watch it again, but I have good memories, and that's priceless. Let's hope that maybe one day in my generation before I pass, we'll get someone that is a true fan and revitalizes Star Trek and bring it up to its glory, its stature, hopefully. And if it doesn't happen before my generation, when I end, it happens somewhere below that some young person is going to catch the original series, The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, this whatever it was that's going to get you to love this series and bring it to its glory. I will be very grateful. So this is a goodbye to any new Trek, a thank you to what was before and giving me solace and making me love science fiction and science. Because what's happening now, it's fiction on itself. So I hope you enjoyed this. Anybody new to my channel, my name is Lena. Welcome to my channel. And for my beautiful, beautiful fans who stick with me no matter what I say, write, or do, welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye. Mwah.